It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
So a child can drown in less than 20 seconds. It's faster than most people think, and as we say, it's often silent. And those things are what make it such a deadly and risky situation for children.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson as we move so quickly now towards the summer holidays. Christmas is just around the corner, and this is the time where the weather warms up and we start to get into swimming pools. Now, I'm going to share a story as we kick off today's podcast that is a little bit hard to hear, and I just want to highlight that I'm not sharing this to be sensationalistic, but to highlight the importance of our conversation today. My guest on the podcast is Dr. Anthea Rhodes. Anthea joins me fairly regularly to talk about the RCH National Child Health Poll. Dr. Rhodes is the director of that poll, and there's been a new poll just conducted with results currently being published, looking at kids and water safety, their capacity to be safe around water, to be swimming, engaging in swimming lessons. And we're heading to the beach. We've got swimming pools, we've got lakes, rivers, whatever it might be. And this is the season where we really need to have this conversation. This conversation is really important to me because my family has come so breathtakingly close to experiencing drowning. We're fortunate that it hasn't occurred, but at a family barbecue a few years ago, probably 15 years ago now, goes really fast the older you get, but at a family barbecue around about 15 years ago, everybody was hanging out in the pool area, having a great conversation. The pool area was full of adults who were all having sausages and steak and salad and standing and sitting and just being present. There were kids swimming in the pool. My young cousin, James, who I think at the time was about 2, was sitting on the edge of the pool and he slipped into the pool. The thing with drowning is that it's silent, and James just slipped into the pool and nobody noticed. He sunk to the bottom of the pool and had been on the bottom of the pool for an extended period of time before somebody saw him. We dived into the pool, pulled him out, and he was changing colour. He was definitely in the process of drowning. Fortunately, we were able to see him start breathing again fairly quickly. He vomited up a whole lot of water and he was okay. But another 5, 10, 20 seconds and the outcome could have been tragic, and we would have been attending a funeral rather than celebrating Christmas. So, Anthea, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. That story is one of those awful stories to start off a conversation like this, but I share it because it matters so much. When you did the RCH National Child Health Poll, what were you asking and what did you find when it comes to kids and water safety?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on to talk about this really important topic, Justin. And as you say, with summer and holidays around the corner, the risk period really goes up. Now, your story, unfortunately, is not a rare one. And most people listening will probably know of someone in their extended family, or perhaps someone very close to them, who has maybe had a near drowning episode. And of course, in some situations, it's not a near drowning. It can, in fact, have devastating outcomes. So we ask parents what they know about drowning and the risks of drowning. And one of the biggest findings is exactly as you say. It's that myth that perhaps children struggle or splash or make a lot of noise or do something obvious if they're struggling in the water and starting to drown. In fact, in most instances, it's quiet, can in fact be silent, and often goes unnoticed. So 44% of Australian parents didn't know that. They didn't know that drowning is often silent. And so they expect that if they've got half an eye on what's going on, they'll notice. There'll be a commotion, something will happen, the alarm will be raised and everyone will be aware. But in fact, in studies where they've looked at footage that's been captured incidentally, like CCTV type footage, where near drownings or drownings have happened, often there's people standing right alongside the incident. There's adults there, but it quietly happens just outside of someone's gaze. And once that child has started to struggle underwater, takes that first breath of water rather than air, then they really rapidly become weak, lose consciousness, and are not able to reach up for the top. So knowing that drowning happens quickly, it can happen in very shallow water, and it's often silent, is really, really important for parents to be aware of.
And I'm astounded when you share those statistics because, I mean, you're saying 44% of parents weren't aware of that. Was there anything else surprising in terms of parental knowledge, parental awareness when it comes to this particular topic?
Yeah, so around half of parents were also not aware how quickly a child can drown. So a child can drown in less than 20 seconds.
Wow.
That's really not a long period of time. If we think about, and this is a classic situation in near drowning type episodes nowadays, we might be on our phone as a parent. You might stop to read one text message or have a look at, one image that's popped up on the screen. In that short period of time, 20 seconds or less, that can be enough for a child to actually enter that drowning episode. So it's faster than most people think. And as we say, it's often silent. And those things are what make it such a deadly and risky situation for children.
Anthea, two things come to mind when you share that. The first is a news story that I remember from a few years ago now, where a mum ended up tragically in court because she had been literally just scrolling Instagram and her little one had been in the bath. I mean, this isn't even a summertime thing, right? This is just bath time. Scrolling Instagram, little one's in the bath. She's there. Didn't notice that her little toddler had stuck its head under the water and actually inhaled the water and drowned right there. The other one, the other story, I'm at pains to share it, but I think, again, emphasising the purpose of this conversation is to emphasise just how important it is that we keep a close eye on our kids.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine is a paramedic down in New South Wales, and he was called to a job where a grandfather had been looking after two little twin boys, toddlers around 3 years of age. The pool gate was closed, but it wasn't locked. Somehow the lock hadn't snapped into place. So he knew that the pool gate was closed, therefore he wasn't supervising the kids particularly closely. They were in the rumpus room, he was in the kitchen. He thought, hey, the kids are pretty quiet, I should go and check on them. All of a sudden they weren't in the rumpus room. He saw the sliding door was open, walked out, saw the pool gate was open, couldn't work out what had happened. Both of the boys, one had gone in, the other one had followed him, and one had drowned on the spot. The other one passed away in hospital a short while later. My friend was the paramedic that was called to the job, and he described the emotional devastation of this grandfather as he was coming to grips with the reality of what had occurred. He said he's never seen pain like it. When it comes to parents and their involvement with helping kids to be safe and supervising them, can you tell me some more about what your RCH poll found to help kids to be safe?
Yeah, so just devastating hearing that story, Justin. And sadly, we see cases just like that here in the hospital every year. And one of the really important things that, is part of that story time and time again is, these are not negligent parents who are choosing or don't realise that it matters. They understand that it's important to supervise their kids, and they understand that their kids probably can't swim. But what people often don't realise is just how quickly these things can happen. So common myths that parents, some parents believe are okay were things like, if you've got older children in the pool, it's okay to leave your younger child, to step away to do something just for a moment. Similarly, in the bath, you've mentioned, really, really important. Children can drown in just a few centimetres of water in a bath. It's not okay to leave a toddler with an older child without an adult, there to supervise. So those sorts of moments where often it's quick, people think, I'm just going to step away for a minute, it can be enough to have devastating consequences. So this study really reminds us how much we need to all talk about this and be aware of this. We also found, interestingly, that dads weren't quite as sharp on their water safety knowledge as mums when we did the survey. So dads were more likely to tell us that it might be all right to, leave an older kid to look after a younger kid in the pool or in the bath, for example. Another really important one is about being at the beach when kids are swimming between patrolled flags. So we're super lucky here in Australia. We've got incredible surf lifesaving, skills and services. But they, again, don't replace supervision for you of your own child. So we found that around a quarter of Australian parents thought if they're at the beach and their kids are swimming between the flags, then they don't necessarily need to supervise them. Now, we know if you picture a busy beach and, you live in Queensland, I live in Victoria, so our beaches are, maybe not quite as fabulous, but on a summer's day between the flags, there are hundreds, if not thousands sometimes, of kids and just a handful of surf lifesavers there to supervise. So they cannot they do a fabulous job, but they do not replace your individual supervision of your young child. So another really important message there for parents as we head into the holiday season, to be aware of that.
When you consider the findings of this poll, what advice, what other stats, what other things do we need to be aware of? I know that there's probably a handful of other things that we can pull out of it that will be really useful over the next sort of 4, 6, 8 weeks as parents spend more time near the water with their kids.
Yeah, so the other big one that we asked about in this study was swimming lessons. So obviously we're all emerging from a couple of years of the COVID pandemic, and there's been pools closed. Perhaps families haven't been on holidays. They haven't had a chance to get in the pool with their kids for a couple of weeks and, really build those water safety and swimming skills. Around half of Australian kids have had lost opportunities to build their swimming skills due to COVID. So that's either missed lessons or, missed a chance to get in the pool and practice their swimming. So as we head into the summer, if that's you and your kids, they're a bit more vulnerable, than they would have been if they'd kept up those regular swimming lessons and been a bit more aware of water safety. Of course, swimming lessons does not replace supervision. And that was, again, a really important myth that we found in this study. Some parents felt if their children have had swimming lessons, then they probably don't need supervision. They're safe in the water. And we're talking about young kids here, kids under 10. Even if they've had lessons, you still need to be supervising them because, you don't necessarily know their ability is enough to save themselves if a situation is outside of their ability or control. But those swimming lessons are a really important thing to get back into. Parents are not going to have a chance to do that before the end of the year. I don't know about you, Justin, but we're all limping to the line here. And there's certainly looking forward to lots of things wrapping up, including all those extracurricular activities for the holidays. But definitely a message for families as well. Next year, re-enroll in swimming lessons. Half of families who had dropped out of these things because of COVID have not got back into those really important lessons to build those safety skills for their kids. And most people told us it's because they were too busy or they hadn't got around to it. They know it's important, but it's one of those things that you've got to factor it in.
I'd imagine that the costs would also be a little bit of a challenge for a lot of families, especially as we're watching the current economic situation unfold. Anthea, this is such an important conversation, obviously with the stories that I've shared and the statistics that you've brought to the fore. I just so much appreciate you taking some time to share these ideas on the Happy Families podcast. Are there any final thoughts, any last words before we wrap this up?
Look, the one parting message really for parents is keep your eyes on your kids over the summer, anywhere around water, especially if you're in a new environment. If you're at a mate's place for a barbecue and they've got a pool, you're down at the beach having a gathering with the extended family, you've gone on holidays, you're somewhere new or different. Those places especially are where we relax finally, but we might drop our guard as well. And we're not aware of the risks. Our kids certainly are not aware of the risks. And drowning can happen quickly, silently, and it's absolutely devastating. So be aware, not about dramatising things and taking away all the fun, but recognising this is a real risk for kids, particularly those young kids under 10, and then even more so, kids under 5. Preschoolers, toddlers, they're the biggest risk age group.
Yeah,
within
stay at arm's reach.
At all
absolutely.
times around water.
Wow. Supervised. Dr. Anthea Rhodes, the director of the RCH National Child Health Poll. Really appreciate you spending some time with us again on the podcast. Have a wonderful Christmas. Stay safe. And I hope we get to talk to you again next year.
Absolutely. You too. Thanks, Justin.
That's Dr. Anthea Rhodes, the director of the RCH National Child Health Poll on the Happy Families podcast, which is produced by Justin Rowland from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. And for more information about making your family safe and happy, visit happyfamilies.com.au.